So weapons, as we already talked about at the start of the video, the accuracy has been improved pretty much across the board, especially for automatic weapons. So I won't cover that again. So the assault rifle, the sweeper was changed in May, but I guess they're just releasing the notes now. But the damage was increased. As I said, I think the sweeper has potential, but I genuinely, I've tried it since, and I still don't think it's that much different to what it was before. I mean, obviously it does more damage, but it's still not quite a killing machine that it could be, especially for its rarity anyway. But reduced recoil, increased damage. Again, I think I talked about this before, so I won't go over it again. Cyclone, slightly increased damage, but that thing's like an uncommon version of the Sonad in that you can't hit anything out of point blank range. So hopefully with these new accuracy changes, it'll be a bit more effective if you haven't yet got the Sonad and you want something to just spray and pray in mid to short range. Cyclone might be worth looking into. Avenger S, I don't think I've talked about these weapons before, but they've now introduced a bunch of new weapons which are based on the common weapons. So you've got the Avenger S, you've got the Charger S, you've got the Katana S and the Viper S, and I'm missing something, the Predator S. So they basically made rare versions of these common weapons and given them a bit more damage. When they were first released, people were basically just mocking BioWare for adding reused content, and I was one of those people because, let's face it, adding common weapons and just making them rare, and the damage was only like an extra 5 points at maximum of damage was a joke, to be quite honest with you. But now they've basically made it so that it's now taking the top tier of damage of the common version and making it the baseline of the S version, if you know what I mean. Again, I haven't tried these out yet, so I don't know because I haven't unlocked all of them, but wait and see how they do in the field. Apparently some of them are pretty good now they've been buffed. I don't know if they're great, but more in line with other weapons of the same tier. The Talon, I'm guessing it's not seeing much love from the multiplayer base, which is why it's been buffed yet again, but some minor changes to the way it deals damage in terms of force. I'm guessing enemies don't recoil as much from the shot, and then the weight has been increased slightly as well. It's a weapon that I bring along as a backup most of the time, but I never end up using. It's not, I don't know, I think in ME3 it had a few characters which would shine really well using that weapon, but in MEA there's not too many characters, I might as well just say it, the Geth Hunter, that makes the weapon shine. So yeah, it's a little bit sad that it's not as good as it was, but again, maybe that's down to the characters or lack thereof. Charger S, again, I talked about the damage increase already, so I won't go over it again, but baseline has been moved to the top tier of the common version. Snipers, Vanquisher takes yet another nerf. This time round it's the weight increase, so it does less damage than it did before, and now it weighs a bit more than it did before as well. The Widow, the slow single shot weapon, has also been changed slightly. Its weight has now been decreased. That's not really the problem that we're complaining about. The weight is not the issue with this weapon. It's the fact that it fires so, well, not even fires slow. The fact that its reload speed is ridiculously long for the damage it does. And now that there's another change as well in terms of enemies, I will cover this in a second. It makes single shot weapons in general very hard to use in MEA. And also the biggest issue, there's no reload cancelling, which is why these weapons suffer so badly. The Indra sniper rifle, very happy to hear about this change. Basically, the issue that I complained about weeks ago, that initial recoil spike when you first fire the weapon has now been removed. I haven't tried it since. I will of course report back once I've tried it. But basically, that should now be more in line with how the Raptor works. And because it does do more damage than the Raptor, it should really replace the Raptor in terms of that weapon category. So wait and see. Excited to try it out. Incisor, recoil has been reduced slightly. It's not a great weapon, but if you do need like a burst assault rifle at low levels, the Incisor probably can fit that job quite well. The only thing is it has got pretty high recoil, which has now been reduced slightly. I imagine it's still going to be there. The Viper S, again, damage has been increased. I've never really liked using the Viper. It's got a slow rate of fire, even though it did sort of decent damage in ME3 as well. The fire rate is just too slow for me to use. I'd much rather use a lot of other weapons, including the Raptor or Indra as well now possibly. Alright, so we're getting close towards the end of these patch notes now. Moving on to enemies. So Fiends, Hydras, Addy and Ascendants now wait a little bit of time before they can sync kill you after jumping from a different level. So previously, this is one of the issues I was talking about. If a Fiend jumped from the ground level and you were on a balcony, for example, he could sometimes just grab you straight away and that's it, you were done. But now they've made a change where they have to wait 2 seconds. I don't know if 2 seconds is going to be long enough. I would rather that they gave you some sort of notification that they were about to attack you rather than just single swipe you and grab you and that was it. This is for the Fiend. He makes next to no noise whatsoever when he sneaks up on you, especially when you're firing your weapon, using powers, whatever. It's very hard to know that he's attacking. Addy is not so much of a problem because it's not a sync kill. Most of the time I find with Hydras and Destroyers is that they will do a hell of a lot of damage to you to the point where you can't really ignore them or not notice them when you're in the middle of a gunfight. So again, that's not a problem. Ascendants can be quite quiet as well. Banshees in ME3, you knew they were coming because they would scream in your bloody ear. Whereas Ascendants sort of just teleport towards you, and you can sort of hear the teleportation happening, but you don't always pay attention to it again because other stuff is going on in the background. So I would like the Fiends and the Ascendants to make more noise, especially when they're approaching, especially when they're close to you. I don't even care about cross map, but I care like within 5-10 meters they should be making a lot more sound than what they are. The next thing is quite significant. Enemies now do more damage across the board, so 5% in bronze, 10% in silver, and 10% in gold. This is probably to coincide with the fact that players have been buffed with their abilities and weapons and all the rest of it. I mean, I don't know. Again, I haven't played this yet, so I can't say what sort of changes this is going to make to the game, but it's the same as what happened in ME3. As stuff got buffed, enemies got buffed, so it's not a massive surprise to see this. But again, until you play it, we don't know what sort of differences this is going to make to gameplay. Another significant change is that shield gate for enemies has been reduced slightly. If you don't know what shield gate is, I have talked about it in a previous video, so I won't cover it in too much detail here again. But basically, when you shoot an enemy, if they've got a shield, for example, there is a brief period of time when you deplete the shield and it goes through to health. And that period of time is called shield gate. So it was previously 0.25 seconds, now it's now 0.1 seconds. So in effect, it will happen a little bit quicker. I mean, it's not a massive change, but it's a welcome change nonetheless. Alright, so even though the duration of said shield gate has been reduced slightly for multiplayer, the actual value in between that occurrence of time has actually been increased across the board. As you can see, bronze, silver, gold. Bronze is not quite double, but silver and gold is almost double what it was previously. Now, why should you care about this value? Well, you should care if you use single shot weapons. So I was talking about the Widow earlier. A lot of the shotguns are going to suffer from this. Basically, it means that you will now have to shoot an enemy more than once, basically, if you want to breach shield gate. So it makes pretty much all single shot weapons redundant. There are obviously still ongoing issues with shield gate when it comes to shotgun pellets, so even those aren't going to be spared from this. So let's wait and see. Hopefully they still make changes to this. I imagine they will do going forwards, but it does mean for the time being, fully automatic weapons or semi-automatics with a high rate of fire are probably going to be your best bet for dealing with shielded enemies. That's not to say that single shot weapons won't have their purposes, but for shield enemies in particular, it's going to be a little bit more annoying for you to deal with. But again, wait and see how this plays out in the actual game itself. Something to do with enemies in cover taking less time to attack targets that are in the open. So if you see enemies in cover, don't rush them head on because they might attack you a bit quicker than what they did before. This is going to make the sharpshooter from the Outlaw faction even more deadly than what they were before, because those guys would hone in on you so fast on gold. But it just means that you now need to be a bit more careful, even more careful, when attacking these sort of enemies. Some other minor changes include increasing the distance that enemies are willing to travel to execute a down player from 9 to 12 meters. I mean, the goal is to never go down in the first place, so it's kind of one of those changes where it shouldn't really affect the way that you play the game. So as well as increasing the range at which enemies are willing to walk to stomp on your face, they've actually made distance that they need to be from you to stomp on your face a little bit shorter, so they can come from a further distance, but they need to get closer to you to stomp on you. Moving on to enemy faction specific changes. So you've got the Ket faction here. The wind up time for Fiend and Ascendant sync kills has been increased by 20%. Well, wait, I'm going to decrease by 20%. So basically it means that you've got a tiny bit more time to escape before they swipe you. But again, this is not really the issue. The attack time is not a problem. It's the fact that they can sneak up on you and do it. That's what I have issue with. But I guess it gives you another chance to escape if you happen to turn around a split second later. And the Fiend no longer sprints within 10 meters of target. Again, this is due to the surprise grabbing, so I guess they slow down a little bit, give you a bit more time to escape, which is always a good thing. Remnant, the assembler weapon will do more damage now, 10%. The assembler is so-so. I'm more worried about him sending out breaches than I'm worried about him shooting at me, so I guess it's a warranted buff. So as well as the assembler being able to do more damage now, it also fires in a kind of a different pattern as well. So it could potentially fire up to 9 shots in a salvo rather than the previous, which was potentially only up to 8. So again, more damaging, but again, you don't really want to take shots from these guys anyway, so it's not something that should change the way that you play the game. There's going to be a larger damage spike at the end of the destroyer damage field, so when it glows that sort of red field around it, that should now ignore players' health gate. Again, you don't really want to be standing next to it when it goes off anyway, so it shouldn't be a big deal, shouldn't really change the way that you play the game. And finally, the observers have a short charge up time before attacking, so no longer will they suddenly appear on the screen and start melting your ass. They will have to wait a split second or so before doing so. Again, these are welcome changes, but the change that I really want to see when it comes to these guys and a lot of other enemies is to stop clipping through bloody walls and objects. Because, for example, and I did have a video of showing this, but I didn't actually talk about it, was I was in a room, I was deactivating a beacon, and an observer just floats through the ceiling and starts shooting me straight away. That shouldn't happen. He should go around the ceiling, through the doorway, like I have to do, rather than just clipping through a wall and start melting my ass on an objective. That's the grievance that I have with these guys, even though I guess shorter charge up time is welcome as well. And finally, the Outlaws. So this is actually quite a big change, and I don't know why it wasn't mentioned at the top, but the Pariah, so the Asari Pariah who fights for the Outlaws, she has that backlash shield. She used to be armor. She is now evenly distributed between health and shield, which means that the Outlaws have one less armor target. They were a little bit armor heavy, so I'm glad to see this change. And it does mean that she's now affected by some more powers as well, such as being able to be frozen, and obviously things like Overload will be a bit more effective against her because she now has shields instead of armor, so that's good to see. And finally, the Hydra sync attack wind-up is 20% faster, so it will be more likely to attack you, obviously, and be more successful rather than you attacking and running away before you can start its sync kill. To be honest, Hydra sync kills are very rare. I very, very rarely see them. Compared to Atlas kills back in the day for ME3, I rarely see any Hydra sync kills. I wouldn't call it a welcome change because obviously he's an enemy, but it's a change that I can appreciate probably was warranted. Alright, so that rounds off the official patch notes for 1.08 for Mass Effect Andromeda multiplayer. As I said, they'll probably add some minor stuff as the weeks go by because they always seem to forget stuff or just omit stuff when they release these full detailed patch notes, inverted commas. Alright, so just to mention some stuff that wasn't listed, but I know has been added to the game. So we've got one new character called the Angaran Exemplar, and basically his powers include Overload, Energy Drain, and Barricade. So if you're looking to separate tech explosions, he's your man, but he is an ultra rare character, so good luck unlocking him. I was using the Human Sentinel with Energy Drain and Throw to set off tech explosions, which was okay, but it wasn't great. So this hopefully will replace, I'm guessing, that character and the Asari one, who I forget at the moment. A new piece of equipment has been added to the item store as well. This is probably on a timer. I don't know how long is left on it, but go get it quick if you want it. This will give you plus 15% damage towards assault rifle, so that's a new piece of equipment. The Riga Carbine, which is a hybrid shotgun slash face melter weapon, returning from ME3. As I said, I don't know if this is going to be as good as it was in ME3, but it's a rare card, and again, that's been added into the store now, so you can buy those from packs. You can't get those anywhere else other than packs. The Jumbo Pack, the Arsenal Pack, and the Reserve Pack, I've already talked about those. I will say is that the Arsenal and the Reserves Pack, they cost 100,000 each, and they contain supposedly 2 rares with an increased chance to get characters or weapons depending on what pack you buy. So obviously characters from Reserves and weapons from Arsenals. There's no mention of ultra rares, so this possibly will operate different to the premium pack. So the premium packs will give you 2 rares and an increased chance for ultra rares, whereas the Arsenal and Reserves pack will probably give you increased chance for weapons or characters depending. There has been a slight change to the Krogan Rage Tree. This seems like a pretty big change that they should have mentioned in the patch notes, but they haven't. So basically the summary version is it's been buffed. I can't tell you too much more details because I haven't used it a lot since the game first dropped. But from what I've heard, it's been changed quite a lot, and it's a lot better now than what it was, so I might give my Krogans another go, especially when it comes to melee being buffed as well, and I'll of course report back on AcornVision Gaming. So again, speaking about melees, as I said, most of them have been buffed for certain characters, and the Juggernaut Shield was nerfed significantly, not slightly, significantly nerfed. I think there are some changes to challenges as well. There might be some daily challenges from what I've heard. And apparently there's more stuff to buy using mission funds from the item store. So as well as the usual XP boosters and consumables, you can now buy mods. Again, if this is true, I'm really glad to hear that, because I can now spend my mission funds on those mods rather than useless one-off items. I've already talked about the pariah being changed from armor to health and shield. I've already mentioned about the sonad might have improved, but this is just a personal thing for me. But weapons in general might have improved in terms of accuracy because of the changes they've made to bloom. So it might be time to blow the dust off these weapons and give them another crack and see how they fare with all these new changes. Just like the previous patch, some characters might have had their powers reset because of the changes to the powers, so you might need to respec them again, but you don't need to use a card, so I suppose that's a bonus. And again, just a minor warning, just if you are going to buy stuff from the store, just be a bit careful. If you're noticing that you're not getting decent drop rates, or if something isn't working the way it should in the store, but well, in previous patches, BioWare did sort of break the store temporarily when they made these new changes, so that's why. Then maybe hold off and buy the packs later. But again, this is just me being a bit cautious. It's up to you, obviously, what you do with your credits. Right, so that's it for today's patch notes. Quite a long video, despite the notes not being that detailed, but you know me and my breakdowns. So yeah, if you enjoyed the content, consider tapping the like button. I really do appreciate it. If you've got any thoughts you'd like to share with me regarding the changes that BioWare have made, or if you've played the game since the patches dropped and you think it's now better or worse, again, let me know in the comment section below. Just like I did after patch 1.06, I'll probably be uploading some gameplay to AcornVision Gaming just to show you what's been changed, especially when it comes to powers. I think I'm definitely going to try those out, maybe even use a power-based class and just give you an idea of what's different. But yes, so check out AcornVision Gaming if you want to see some gameplay, and I'll of course be uploading some clips, such as the Fiend one, at some point in the future. Anyway, so until the next video, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, take care, and I will see you later.